No calculators. What about this bothers you?
It's a negative exponent.
You don't like the decimal, and you don't like the negative exponent. But if I gave you this, x to the negative 3 times x to the 5th, what would you do? It would be fine. You'd add the exponents, and you would get x squared, yes? Why are you able to do that? Because they're the same base. Well, what is that and that? Same base. So isn't that just 0.3 squared? Now let's say you're bad at squaring decimals in your head. What's 3 squared? 9.
0.9.
But I need how many decimal places? 2. Because it's 0.3 times 0.3. Right now the decimal lives there, right? I need 2 decimal places. There's 1. There's 2. What goes in the hole? 0. Now, let's pretend you don't remember that from Mrs. Bad Crumble. Do you remember that that is 3/10? Of course you do. And do you remember that squared means 3/10 times 3/10? Of course you do. And isn't that 9 over 100? And isn't that 0.09? Yeah, sure. You betcha. And we are not scared of numbers anymore because numbers are not there to hurt us. What scares you about number 2?
The amount of brackets.
There's square brackets. Double brackets.
Square brackets?
Negative fractions.
Fractions?
Corners.
But what if I gave you this? What do you notice there and there?
The same base.
They're the same base. So couldn't I do x to the negative 4 squared and x squared, x squared to the 3? Isn't this the same thing? A base to the negative 4 squared. A base to the negative 4 squared. That same base squared cubed. That same base squared cubed. So what would I do here? That's x to the negative 8. What would I do here? X to the 6. What would I do now? X to the negative 2, right? Okay, but there's no x in the first question. What is it?
It's
Negative 3 over 2 to the negative 2. What does a negative do to the base? Switches it to negative 2/3. What happens to the exponent? Positive. What does that mean?
Negative 4.
Negative 2/3 times? No. Negative 2/3 times negative 2/3, right? Negative times a negative is what? 2 times 2 is? 3 times 3 is? 9. Done without a calculator. 5 seconds ago? 5 seconds later? 4/9. Why? What did you do in this very first line to help yourself? You changed it to something you could recognize. How many times have I said to do that? Thousands. Do not look at a question like it is something you have never seen before. Every single thing you have ever learned in math built on something from one day before that, didn't it? Right? Kindergarten, Mrs. Bad Crumble. How many apples do you have, Ariana? You have 3, Mrs. Bad Crumble. How many apples do you have, Joseph? I have 4, Mrs. Bad Crumble. How many apples do you have together? 7, Mrs. Bad Crumble. Gold star, gold star. And you did that for a week and a half. And then, Zach, how many apples do you have? 7. How many apples do you have, Gio? 8. How many apples do you have together? 15. How many apples do you have when you get together with Ariana and Joseph? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22 Mrs. Bad Crumble. Gold star, gold star, gold star, gold star.
Gummy bear.
So, without that first step of adding them, you couldn't have done that second step of adding all of you. Look at what you already know. Look at 3. What's weird?
Decimals.
Decimals, but aren't they all the same base? So couldn't I just write it as x cubed times x to the 4th over x to the negative 2? And wouldn't that just be x to the 7th over x squared, or x to the negative 2? And wouldn't that just be x to the 9th? So wouldn't that just be 1.4 to the 9th? And that's as simple as you need to go.
Oh, so
You can't do that in your head. It would take a year and a half to do one paper.
Really?
no.
Oh yeah, it would take forever.
Are you serious?
Oh, forever.
I thought it was
Because
just
it's
like
a
that
decimal?
up there, but no.
1.4 times 1.4 times 1.4 9 times.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking squared I can do, but I didn't.
Well, squared would be easy. It would be 1.96. Do that in your head, because 14 squared is
Why is it 96?
196. Then you need 2 decimal places. So 1.96. All right. What's weird about 4 that scares you?
Fraction.
Fractions. But if it was 7 squared over 7 to the 1 times 7 to the 5th, what would you do?
Why not use the 3?
It would be 7 squared over 7 to the 6th, correct? Then what would you do?
So we subtract.
7 to the negative 4, right?
Yeah.
Except, what are all of these? They're over 3. So since they've all got a common denominator, since they've all got a common denominator anyway, don't I only care about the numerators? So it's negative 4 over what? Over what? 3. Does that allowed? Is that allowed?
Why don't you? Oh,
Why is that not allowed?
why don't you change the 3?
Because it's a fraction. I can't take away the 3. Why would I? They're all a common denominator.
Oh,
I got to flip it. So it's 1 over 7 to the 4/3. Is that okay? Yes, that is what we call exponential form. I don't like exponential form. I'm arbitrary. I want radical form. What do I do with that to make it radical? It's 1 over the cubed root of 7 to what power? 4. That is where I want you in grade 10. Tobby. Okay. No. That's cool. What should you do here when they all have the same base, Tobby? What should you do in the denominator? Add. What's 1/3 plus 5/3? This is not a trick question. This finger is worth 1/3. This finger is worth 5/3. How many thirds do I have? 6/3. So I have 7 to the 2/3 over 7 to the 6/3. Yes? Now what? I subtract, don't I? Well, these fingers are worth 2/3. I'm going to take away 6. 1, 2. Now I got to go into the negatives. How far? 4. So it would be 7 to the negative 4/3. I got rid of the 3 when I was working in my head because I had a common denominator already. So I was only going to be working with the numerators, right? Now, I would like to show you this. Do not write down what I am about to write down. Just pay attention. This is the same as 1/7 to the 4th with the 4 under there. What size group am I looking for here? 3. So in future math class, you're going to take out that 7, cube root, and what'd you leave under there?
4.
No. A single 7. That's where you're going to go eventually. Well, there were 4 7s under there, wasn't there? And you took out a group of 3. 1 7, and you left a 7 under there. That's the next layer. But we're stopping here. Okay? I just don't want to be accused of, next year, Myers never showed us anything like that. Okay. If there were no y's, do you know what to do here? Of course you do. What do you do?
3 times 2.
X to the 5th. If there were no x's here, what would you do? Y to the negative 2. Is that okay? No. What moves? Y. Because it needs to be positive. Nice.
Why did you do that?
Now, it's a little joke.
I didn't get it.
That's okay.
Why?
If there was no variables, what's the answer to what's left there? 2. If there was no numbers and no b's, what's the answer to that? A squared. If there was no numbers and no a, what's the answer to that? B to the no. B to the 5th. 3 minus 2. Okay. Now let's pretend you have a lot of trouble adding and subtracting negatives. But that's not really pretend, is it? Is it? No. If you know what is happening, is this easy to explain? If there was no b cubed there, what would you do with that b to the negative 2? It's in the denominator and it's negative, so where does it go? To the top and becomes positive, correct? So now it's gone from down there. But there was a b3 up there. 3 and 2 is b5. Okay. Okay. It's not before, it's now. B5. Okay. Should 7 scare you? Of course not. Why?
Because it's the same thing as it is.
It's the same thing. What do you do here? That's 1.5 to what power? 15. Over 1.5 to 5. What do I do? So it's 1.5 to what power? 10. Write that in another way for me. Oh, with no decimals.
That'd be 15.
You could do that. You could go 15 over, not 100, 1.5. 15 over 10 to the 10th. That's proper. How else could I write it without a fraction? Or, I just gave it away. How else could I write it without a decimal? Which would be 3 over 2 to the 10th, right? Because isn't 1.5 3 halves? Of course it is. And isn't that 3 to the 10th over 2 to the 10th? Sure it is. Would I accept any of those 4 answers? Yes. Now, number 8 is now where we're starting to get into the meat of this unit. Number 8 requires you to do 75% of every single thing you have learned in this unit. 75% of it is in that one question. And there's more than one way to do it. Would anybody like to talk about what they think they would like to do first?
You can make it so that it's a cube.
Whoa. Ariana?
You can make the fraction, take the 3, put it on the outside of the brackets.
Ariana says we could make this the cubed root of 8a3b6. Is that okay? Abso-smurfly correct. That is totally fine. And let's finish that one off while we're thinking about it. What is the cubed root of 8? 2. So what comes out? 2. Excellent. What is the cubed root of a cubed? A. So what comes out? A. What is the cubed root of b to the 6th? B squared. So what comes out? B squared. Is there anything left under there?
No.
Is there anything left under there?
8.
Is there anything left under there?
Oh!
Oh, underwear.
Thank you. Is it that difficult, everyone?
I know where it is. It's gotta be somewhere.
Underwear, okay? That's the joke here.
I just made you say underwear. That's the joke.
We know where it's
not in grade
we're supposed to be
5.
like, you don't know where.
Really? I know you're not in grade 5 because the grade 5 math is confusing you. There you go, Austin. That wasn't a shot at you. I know. I'm well aware. That's why I do extra laughs to ruin his REM cycle.
That hurt.
It shouldn't have. Now, is Ariana absolutely correct in this method? Could this question be done completely with exponent laws?
Yeah.
Yes, because where would that 1/3 go?
Oh, you
It would go everywhere. Wouldn't that be 8 to the 1/3?
underwear.
Which is the cubed root of 8, which is what? 2. What do I do with 3 and 1/3 going over brackets? Yes, you do.
Hold on. I'm sorry. What?
3 times 1/3. What's 3 times 1/3? 1.
Oh, that's right.
A to the 1. What is 6 times 1/3? 2. 6/3. Do I write 1? No. And I get the same answer doing 2 different methods. Who chooses the method they're going to use? You do. All right, number 9. Barf.
When you just subtract 2 and 1, if it's the same denominator.
How many methods do we have here?
18 over 2.
Could I do 4 divided by 2 to get the first part? What is it? 2.
I don't know.
Could I do -2 minus 2 to get the middle part?
And that's
What is it?
4.
-4.
Negative.
Could I do 2/3 minus 1/3?
Yeah, that's 1 over 3.
1/3. B to the 1/3. Something there makes me go bleh. What is it?
The fraction.
No. The negative makes me go bleh. So it's 2b to the 1/3 over what? A to the 4th. Is that exponential or radical form? Exponential. Is that allowed? What if I decide that I am being an arbitrary meanie and I insist you put it in radical form? What would you do?
We go to B.
2 cube root of b over what?
A over 4.
A to the 4th. Yes?
Y cubed. Never mind.
Okay. Number 10 could be your entire test on the whole unit. That one question has every single thing in this entire unit in it. In one question. Are you ready? Go.
Oh, we're doing it by ourselves.
Go.
Why is there no A again?
Oh, that's a misprint thing. The A is there. I don't know. It's pissing me off, actually. It happens on a regular basis.
100 divided by 25 is...
I'll give you a hint. Number 8 gives you some good ideas to try on number 10. It's almost like I showed you how to do it before I got you to do it.
And then there's no A. There's no B. Hello? Is that A to the 5th? Oh.
Yeah. The A on the denominator, there's an A to the 5th.
Negative 4. And then just leave B.
To the. Hey, you know how
Yes, you're missing the A. We've established that. The denominator has an A to the 5th in it. It did not print. No one knows why. It was the ghost. Yeah, there, Gio. none of you are dropping the mic on this because you know how to do something. Break it down into something you're comfortable with. And in 2 more minutes, I'm going to do this question, then we're going to be done. And your homework is going to be to attempt 11 and 12, and then the next page, and then anything you see fit on 111. All right. Where could you start here? Zach? Where cube it? Square root? So Zach is saying he would like to square root this whole thing, which is pretty good because 100's got a square root.
And that's 10.
25's got a square root. A to the 5th, we could simplify a square root, but then it gets a little gross here, right?
Yeah.
So while it would work, it gets to a spot where you'd be like, ugh, right?
Times.
Like reaching into that at the Halloween haunted house and the peeled grapes, and they say they're eyeballs, right? No.
You could times
So what's another thing we could do that might work better?
1 over times 1 over 2.
Can I tidy this up?
Yeah. So 1
What if there were no A's and B's? What's 100 divided by 25? 4. A and A to the 5.
-4.
A to the -4. B to the -1/2 is down in the denominator, but could I bring it up if I wanted to? And what would I do to the exponent? It would be positive, yes? And all of that is to what power?
1 over 2.
1/2. Where does that 1/2 go?
Into everything.
Into everything. So it's 4 to the 1/2. Isn't that the square root of 4? What is it? 2. What's 1/2 times -4? -2. Right? Because half of 4 is 2. And what's 1/2 times 1/2?
2 over 2.
No.
Whoa, whoa.
1/4. What there makes me go bleh? The negative. So it's 2b to the 1/4 over a squared. Is that allowed to be left that way? It is, right? But what if I said, no, I don't like exponent form. I want radical form, and I'm going to pout until you do it right. I'm going to hold my breath.
It's 2b 1 over 4 square root of 2.
Hey, then you're holding your breath because I'm not going to be there.
Okay.
Whoa, we're killing him. It's 2b 1. You can
Oh, it's 4 to the.
2b 1 over 4 square root of a2.
Is 2 4 through b over a squared. That was pretty good. That was impressive. How long was that?
I have that.
So we can only solve a question when someone's life is on the line. That's hilarious.
It was so stressful I couldn't even think.
Exactly. He's sitting there like, you could have killed me. You could have killed me.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me because there's 1 minute left. Do not follow your first instinct on these questions.
Which is put.
I'm not going to tell you what your first instinct is. I know what it is. Don't do it.
To put -2 as x.
I'm gonna do it.
So you don't want us to put right away -2 as x.
Of course not. Why would you put -2 into that giant mess? Why wouldn't you simplify first?
That was a strange straight.
It's like I've done this before. Have good days.